Welcome, boys and girls, to the second vlog in the product line series. You guys just got done seeing the Skull product line. Now we're moving over to LED floods. Some of you may remember back during the 30 days of the haunted tent setup vlogs I did. During that time, I wanted to make up some floodlights, LED floods, for an area in the haunt, and we got started in it. I ran into some problems. We never finished the project. Well, during teardown in the evenings, I got my kinks worked out, and we got our floods made. In fact, here's one here. This is a red. For the purpose of my haunt, these are going, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it through the dirty window, but in between those bushes out there, sitting like that, pointing up to flood some color up. We usually use incandescent lights. I want to get away from that. I want to go low voltage. Saves a little bit more money, and these are a little bit more water resistant. Anyway, got to looking at it. These floods are made out of a switch box, and what I ended up doing is I mounted 12 LEDs inside with a plexiglass top on the top inside a switch box. Switch box, for those of you who aren't familiar with electrical terms, are basically these boxes here are what hold your outlets in your walls. You don't see them, they're mounted inside the wall. These are designed to run off of 12 volt. It's got the switch box, plexiglass coating, 12 LEDs inside, and then I went and took some stereo push jacks to hook for a quick release for the power. At this time, I don't have a mounting stake for them. In my haunt, these are just going to be sitting flush on the ground. This is what the switch boxes look like when I get them. And you see it's got a couple nails in it. I pulled the nails out, obviously. But what I went and did, where the holes were for the nails, is I widened out the holes a little bit to accept a zip tie. So you could actually hang these in your haunt simply by running a zip tie through the hole, or you can have them stand alone. Another alteration we're going to be doing is I'm going to be mounting a little L bracket on the bottom end of it, so you can mount it to a stake or what have you. Right now I do not have any stakes planned for the LED project, and I should correct myself on that. I've got a couple ideas floating around my head, but for West Coast Haunters Convention there will not be stakes. I'm not going to have time to do stakes up. So it'll be just the lights that we'll have for sale. But I wanted to kind of show you what we have, all the different parts that goes in to making these floods. Okay, to start the project off, we need a housing, and we're starting off with a switch box as I got it at home, or actually I bought those at an electrical supply house. You can get those at Home Depot or Lowe's. I found it cheaper to go to an electrical supply house. Home Depot has them for around 69 cents each. I got them from the electrical supply house for 59. If you're only going to build a couple of these, just go down to Home Depots and Lowe's and get those. Way easier, what have you. If you're doing a lot, and I'm doing 200 of them with this batch, it's cheaper to go to the electrical supply house and just buy them in bulk. You can save quite a bit of money. The next are some electrical leads, which I will use to connect the LED lights to the push button. There's actually 4 wires involved in this. I've only got 2 showing here. And then we move over to the LED lights themselves. Now, when I did some research on the internet, I found you could buy LED bulbs, you could buy pre-wired LEDs, which makes the project a little quicker and what have you. But I found, and this kind of gets into the electrical and electronics end of it, it's better if you have your LEDs in a clip. In other words, in a series of more than one with a resistor on it. It has to go into resistance and amperage and all that. You can actually get more LEDs or more LED fixtures together if the LEDs are in a series than if you used single LEDs in the fixture, if that makes any sense. And we won't get into that any further. Then we're also using some photo film. They use this for backdropping and everything. It's a fairly thick, tough, durable, and it's a nice shiny surface to it, so it helps reflect the light. And then from there, we move into some plexiglass. This is what I use to cover the LEDs with. It's just some regular plexiglass. I had a whole bunch of scraps in my shop, so we're going to be using that up. You can get plexiglass if you try to buy it. That there is just slightly smaller. Oh, I'm not even really sure what the thickness is. It's not real thin, but it's not real thick either. You can get that for like 90 bucks for a full sheet of it, and then cut it down, and one sheet will give you lots of panels for your lights. Believe me, you'll get a couple hundred covers out of it. And then we also have a wafer. What this is a came out of a 4x8 sheet of 1/8" Luan, and I just cut it down to the size I need. And the size on it is to fit inside the is to hold the LED, so it has to fit inside the light box. Then we also have a couple of copper leads, which is just simply some I believe it's 16 gauge copper ground wire, and we'll use that to link all the LEDs together. Then from there we'll go over like that, and we've got 2 push jacks which mount on the outside of the box to act as our quick release. And then down here is our mounting system I'm adding to the box. It's an L bracket, a screw, a nut, and a bolt. And what we'll be doing, and we'll get this one over here into frame, is attaching the L bracket like that on the box, and then you can run a screw or a bolt through the L bracket to a wood stake or however you want to mount them. But those are the components. We're going to get started now. I need to get my get the shop cleaned up, and we're going to get out here and we're going to get the table saw set up, and we're going to start cutting these wafers and the plexiglass pieces, getting them all cut and ready to go for the next stage. Let's get this project started. Here I'm starting out by cutting some scrap plexiglass I've had laying around my shop. In this clip that you're seeing here, I am basically cutting it down to length. We'll also be cutting it down to width. The size of the blanks I'm going to end up getting are going to be just slightly bigger than what I'm actually going to need, so I'll have some grinding later on to do. But right now I'm just trying to get all the lenses, I guess you can call them, cut out. This will be what is covering the end of the box and covering the LEDs, so things don't get into the LEDs. Got all the plexiglass cut into the size to fit the outlet boxes, and got quite a few of them in here. That's all the extra plexiglass that I have. I have no idea how many pieces I've got, so I'm going to have to go through. I'm going to have to get a count on these so I kind of know. Plus, they need to be cleaned up. They're dusty and what have you. A lot of them still have the clear plastic film on them, which needs to get removed before I can even install them. So that's going to be my next job. And I can do that in the house. I don't have to do that out here in the shop. But, they're done. They're cut. Now you just need to be cleaned up, and then I can set them off the sun. They're ready for use whenever I get to the point of needing to use them. I'm hoping I've got way more than 200 of them in here. That way I'll have a bunch made up, ready to go. I'll have parts available. Our next stage in the project is cutting the wafers out. This is the piece that actually holds all the LEDs and everything for the actual floodlights. There's actually several different steps that we have to go through with these to get them ready to actually mount the LEDs. This is the first step here, and like the plexiglass, I'm sitting here cutting these out for their width currently. It doesn't take all that long, just a lot of them to do, and get these done, and then we move on to the next stages. Right now, the lumber I'm using right now is a 1/8" Luan, so it's not very thick. but it's perfect for what I need to do. Now that I've gotten the wafers to the point where their width is cut, it's time to cut them down for their length. And you'll notice I have the table saw set up in a little bit different configuration. I'm not using the fence anymore. I'm using a different type of guide, and I have the measurements marked on the guide so I know, how to place the wood on it to get it cut to the length I need. Now the measurements on the wafers is slightly smaller than what it was for the plexiglass lenses I cut. These are made to fit inside the box. So a lot of them to do. It's just a matter of sitting here repeating over and over and over again the same thing, just cutting all the wafers out. Okay, on this stage, all the wafers have been cut. It's time to start getting these things ready to get the holes drilled for the LEDs. Now I could just do it one wafer at a time, mark the holes on each one, and then run them all through my drill press and get the holes drilled out. With the amount of wafers I have to do though, that would take forever. So here I'm saving myself a little bit of time, and I'm stacking the wafers in stacks, 10 to 15 wafers to a stack, taping them up. Now that we have the wafers all stacked, it's time to get the holes marked out on each of the stacks. In order to do that, I'm using one wafer I've already marked out and pre-drilled, and I'm using it as a template to mark my holes. And it's just a matter of sitting here going through each stack, marking all the holes. Now that everything is marked, it's just a matter now of running them through the drill press and drilling out all the holes. Even with all the wafers bundled up into 10 to 15 to a stack, there's still 12 holes for each stack that need to be drilled, and I've got 30 to 40, if not more, of these bundles I have to drill. So it is a little time consuming, but then again, I'm doing up around 400 floodlights altogether. If you're just going to make, 5 or 6 floodlights, it doesn't take that long. Now that all the wafers are finished, as far as their drilling goes, I can break them loose from their stacks, and they're a little rough, so they need some light sanding. So that's going to be our next step. I'm going to run them over my 6-inch disc sander, and we're going to get them smoothed out. Now that the wafers have been cut, they've been drilled, they've been sanded, the next stage is to get them attached to the reflective backing. This is the side of the wafer that the public will see. Will help reflect the light and stuff out, and aim the light out better than if I just left it without the reflective surface. What I'm using is some mylar. It's a type of mylar. They use it for photography and what have you. And I was very, very fortunate, and I wanted to give a very big thank you to Troy from Scare Hollow in the Northwest Hunters Association. I was able to pick up a part roll of this stuff from him for free. Right now, to attach these to the mylar, I am using some spray glue. Is all it is, and I'm spraying it on the wafers and then putting them on the mylar and pressing them down, and I let it dry for a little bit. Once the glue is dried, it's time to get everything cut out again, and we're just going to simply take a pair of scissors and we'll get them cut to length, and then here in a bit we'll get them cut to to width. It's much like just basically cutting fabric, except it's not fabric, but you know, it's the same principle. We'll get them all cut down to their size. Once the length and the width of this been cut, we'll come back through and we'll bob the corners a little bit, because these are going to have to be able to fold up a little bit in the box, and it's easier to do if the corners are bobbed. Here's a good example of having the corners bobbed. You'll notice the corners have a notch cut out of them. You'll also notice that while I have the holes in the wafer, there are no holes in the mylar. And with this step, I'm taking an old soldering iron, and I'm basically inserting it through the wafer and just letting it melt its way through the mylar. That way the hole goes all the way through the mylar, and the lights will be able to stick through. Now that we are as far as we can go on the wafers for this point in time, it's starting to start working on the boxes. First step with the boxes is going to be getting all the nails out of them, because we really don't need the nails for these boxes. Now that we are done removing the nails, it's safe to smooth out the boxes a bit. There's some burrs on them, like on the bottom of the box where the nipple went in to pour the slurry for the mold. These are all made with a mold. And then there's some burrs and stuff up along the top of them and what have you. The idea is to, you know, get them smoothed out so there's no jagged edges where people can cut themselves on them, or so they'll sit flush on the ground. For this, we're going to be using our belt sander and disc sander. Now that we've got the outside of the box smooth, our next job is we need to create a small ledge on the inside of the box to hold the bottom side of the wafer. For this, we're going to be using my drill press with a drum sander in it, and we're just going to kind of lightly sand about a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch indentation to the inside of the box that the wafer will sit on. Now that we have the ledges created on the inside of the box for the wafer, it's time to turn our attention back to the outside of the box. I got to create several access points on the outside of the box so we can mount the push pin jacks I have. This is where all the wiring for the light will be attached to. For this, we're going to be using a Dremel with an abrasive cone heat on it to just kind of bore 2 holes on each end of the box. Okay, the last step on the box is mounting the mounting bracket on it, which is really simple and straightforward. We've already gone through and pre-drilled the hole in the bottom of the box to accept the screw. And what we're going to do now is basically put the screw through the L bracket, put it through the hole in the box, and then on the inside put a washer and a nut, and then just tighten it down. Like I said, roll straight forward. With one little caveat, I am also adding an automotive glue to this. It's called Loctite. It's to prevent the nut from coming loose once the thing's together. The last thing I want is people removing the L bracket and then having the bolt bouncing around loose inside the LED. It can cause damage. So the Loctite will prevent the nut from coming loose on the inside of the box. The Loctite will help to prevent that.